Well, you can to some degree, to some small degree, if you use metaphors or symbols that you are familiar with. So we can pass on for you a metaphor that this a small one understands and can take some level of comfort in. So if you look at the world that your peoples have created from their own through their own belief patterns, which is how you have created this world. If you go beyond that and look at when you began to individuate from that whole heart, that setted that individual cell of the whole into a predetermined process in which that cell now must experience every possibility of experience and of evolution, a form that is possible in all of the dimensions. Once, and that is the way that it then becomes less and less of what it experiences and more of what it came from until it returns. So that is the largest picture that there is. In this dimension, it helps to have an understanding that the very institutions, we will say, the very ways that humans have created to assist them to live in a limited way, in a way that they feel they have some control over, is to develop these institutions that you have. Yes, so you have government, and you have education, and you have health care, and you have marriage, and you have, religions. There are all of these ways of trying to take something that is very large and has no boundaries and to divide it up so it is as small enough to be able to comprehend, and then to put it in a box that you can then use. So now comes along every 42,000 years or so, this big, huge cycle in which the basic vibration of the galaxy, of the cosmos, is changing. And when that occurs, the ways that you divided up and compressed into a form that you could then use to live your lives in a limited understandable way from your persona way, will not work in a different energy form. And so it must be destroyed before you can regrow it in a new energy form. So if you look at astrology, you are looking at the interplay between Mars and Venus, or the interplay between Jupiter and Saturn, or the interplay that Pluto has with Uranus, because those, like Mars, its job is to destroy everything so that it goes down to nothing, and then lies follow. And then through Venus, you begin to regrow what is more appropriate to the time it is growing in. Instead of to try to force the old way into maintaining its limited processes and understandings in an expanded field. It cannot do. And you have created for yourselves personas which believe that they must be able to be in charge. They must be able to have control over everything in their lives. And so they divide they create institutions and ideas and processes that allow them to feel like they are at the head of the line. Yes, we are in charge of the world. If we only could know enough science, we could get rid of disease. If we only have enough knowledge in the way the human persona works, then we could prevent anyone from ever being insane. If we could only, and but the reality is that you have no control over that, no matter how much you think you know. That you have no control over that. You can only control a process if you are separated from the process. You are part of the process. And being part of the process, you cannot control the process. So the drop of water, which is rushing down the stream and over the cliff, what you call waterfall, and flowing out into the ocean, has nothing to say about the river. It cannot control the river. It cannot control how fast it goes. It cannot control whether it goes or doesn't go. It cannot control how broad it becomes or how little it becomes. It is part of the river. You are part of the river of creation from the moment that you individuated yourself. You are now part of the process of experience and exploration as well as enlightenment, which is about learning and then releasing everything that has ever occurred to you, ever experienced to you. So you release it. So the drop of water becomes more than itself when it allows itself to not see itself as a part of the river that is separated from the river, but as an integral and necessary part of the process of the river. And now it becomes holy, just as you do. Yes? Yes. And so the violence that you see around you, it does not have to be quite so awful if people were not so terrified of losing what they think they have in the way of controlling the world around them, so that they can feel like they are in control. Once you give up the need to be in control, then you do not have to fight so hard to keep what you think you have that will keep you in control. Yes? Yeah. And so then the amount of destruction is lessened, the violence around the destruction is lessened. So the violence that you are seeing is not the same thing as the cycle of destruction that is occurring. It is in reaction to the destruction which is occurring. It is not the destruction, it's a self. So while forest fires appear to be violent, they are not violence. While hurricanes have a violent outcome, they appear to be violent, they are not violence. They are different. They are a natural occurrence of how it is that this, not just the Earth, but all of the pieces of its galaxy clean and recharge and rebuild itself. It is a natural process. The violence that you are seeing is the human ego in fear of losing its own beingness or its own life or its own livelihood or its sense of capacity to control events around it for its own good. And that is where the violence stems from. And that you can only help a bit by simply embracing those who are in such terror and rocking them in your prayers, because they are locked in their own nightmare. And until they are sucked up by the cyclone and whirled around and thrown out into space, like this one's tarot card, what the 16 card, yes, where the lightning comes down and these people are now in free fall. And you are the mattress at the end, at the bottom, that they can land on, and you gather them up and say, it's going to be okay, come with me. Yes, that is what you are doing here. That is your job here. And they cannot stop their violent reactions until they are dragged up or hit by whatever. And they have such overwhelming loss that the carapace around their heart is destroyed. And now they are free to be held and help, and you can help them discover themselves, who they really are. You can assist in discovering that because you know who they really are. And so you hold that for them until they can discover it for themselves.